The sea is a pretty scary place. You're never really safe in a boat. I mean, there's so many things that can go wrong, and if you're depending on the boat for your life, you're pretty vulnerable. The sea really doesn't care if you live or die. We kept thinking up things that we could do that were crazier than the thing before. And then one day I said, well, let's just sail around the world. And Terry was stupid enough to agree to that.
We're in an alien world for us. The boat's the only thing that allows us to survive out here.
I was planning on getting a PhD in philosophy and then being a professor. And then all of a sudden I had a vision of what I would be like when I was 50 years old. I thought, well, I know exactly how this goes, but it seemed lifeless or something, deadening. It just seemed to lack mystery. And for some reason that kind of horrified me, that I knew, I could see how my life was going to develop. I didn't want to know how it was going to develop.
And I'm just surrounded by ocean. I'm looking at the curve of the ocean. I'm sitting on the curve of the world in the middle of the ocean. And the awe of being out there in this huge, giant place and just looking out at this vastness of sea that is just wild around us. And we're out in the middle of it. And it's all you can see is sea around you. And it's just such a great feeling to be in this wild part of the world. You're in a wilderness. You're going out to a place where there's no trails, there's no footprints, there's no paths. It's an extremely wild place. It's a place, it's a water, it's a sea that looks very much the way it did when Columbus did his voyage. It looks the same, it feels the same. It's the same thing, it's that same wilderness. It's just untouched. All that water in a little tiny boat makes you feel very small. One thing about sailing, you realize and understand, is it really brings you in the moment, because things are happening right there, right at the moment. You have to pay attention to what's happening. Basically, you're dealing with the present in a very, very real way. It's a whole different world than life on land. You get used to the routines, but on the boat, everything moves constantly. You can't walk around on the boat without holding on to something.
Our boat broke apart about 30 miles before making landfall after crossing the Atlantic Ocean and started to get water aboard. So if you can imagine standing on the Marin headlands and looking out at the Farallones, some days you can see them and some days you can't. It's about that far away. And what happened was it split across the boat, like across the hull. There was a crack that opened up that was about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch wide, and it was about this long on both sides of the hull. And so this started to admit a lot of water. And so we just had to start trying to get the water out of the boat and to try to stop it from coming in too fast. While you're in the middle of this, you're too concerned about the immediate problems to be scared about what's going on. You worry about, later it seems kind of daunting, but while you're in the middle of it, you just take care of business. Most boats this happens to just sink immediately. We would have sunk eventually, but we managed to get into a harbor where they could haul our boat out of the water before we were out of business. One of the things that made us worry was that the people working on the boat had never fixed this kind of damage to a boat before. Usually in life, we don't have to make decisions that you know might kill you if you go the wrong direction.
But it's like, no, we set out here to sail around the world. We're going to finish this. Let's finish it. We're going to do this.
I think the worst kinds of boredom that we experienced were sometimes you get in a storm where it was so rough that you just basically had to hang on and endure it.
And wondering, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? This is so miserable, so uncomfortable. And yet, you know, it's discomfort. The boat is just pounding away. The boat is taking all of this strain and pressure and crashing. It's basically sailing itself.
Those times when you kind of just had to sit on the boat and wait till the storm passed, those hours went slowly.
There was definitely a sense of accomplishment. It's like arriving at a port in an island in the middle of the Pacific. You go ashore and you have a feeling, and there's a respect for those that live on and around the sea, for those that do something like this.
It's not simply a matter of a challenge, I don't know if I can do this. It's also a matter of doing something that is not in your bailiwick, it's not in your ballpark, it's not in your comfort zone. You're expanded more as a human being if you do things that are the opposite of what you normally are. You know, your brain and your heart or your psyche grow, according to Hegel, grow with confronting the opposite part of yourself.